Yes, that is really how the game starts. This year must be the year of the greatest game intros because that is easily one of the most impactful beginnings. No words, no context. A beautifully grim world full of color and intrigue. And you discover it all with the start of a friendship. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Adam Wolf from Gamers Platform, and welcome to another episode of Halftime. We're going to be taking the next 15 minutes or so to talk about a brand new game from one of my all-time favorite indie developers, Runic Games. If you're unfamiliar with their work, they're most famous for the Torchlight series. If you're into ARPGs, then I highly recommend you take a look at Torchlight 1 and 2. But this video is about Hob, an extremely smart, simple, and thought-provoking puzzle game that lets the actions of the characters speak for them, unveiling the story as the player progresses. Through gestures, body language, and speech only known to the characters themselves, this is truly one hell of a way to tell a story. Well, now that the scripted part is out of the way, we can get to the meat of the video and the pros and cons. This is a full release game, so this is not any beta test or anything like that, so, I will be judging the game based on the first few hours that I actually got to play of it, and let me tell you, there are way more pros than cons. I struggle to find a con in this game, and it's not just because it's from one of my favorite developers. It's the simple fact that they make games that are beautiful, tell a great story, and are reasonably priced. Okay, and price does play a big factor in games that that we buy. If you buy a $60 game, you expect $60 experience, and these days that's really hard to come by. A lot of the time you're getting games like Hob for a third of that price, and getting a much better experience for it. So I really take price into consideration, but this game, even without price, is totally worth more than they're asking. I'm not even joking. Even in just the first few hours, I am blown away by this game, and I'll tell you why right now. The first thing I have to say about this game is the art style is gorgeous. It is It is just one of the nicest. It's like somebody painted this game. I mean, that's literally what it looks like. It looks like a game that was painted and put together. It is a beautiful color palette, very vibrant, and it catches your eye, even in the most dark areas. You know, so far I've only experienced, I think, 2 areas tops, and even in the darkest of areas, it is still amazing to look at. The colors just scream at you, and it's such a beautiful representation of what is possible in video games in terms of an artistic perspective. It is just it's an amazing looking game. The second thing on the list is gameplay is simple and engaging. They recommend, which is it's very rare that a game on Steam is actually that this is on the page, but when you go to the store page, it actually says it's highly recommended that you use a controller. Now, this game is out for PC and PS4, not Xbox, but they do have. Actually, I don't think they have controller support for PS4. But bottom line is that I was using a PS4 controller on my PC, and I used a third-party program to set it up. But anyway, I digress. Absolutely, I don't know what it's like with a keyboard and mouse. I feel like it'd be complicated with a keyboard and mouse. It may not be. I might just be, a controller fiend, as it were. I mean, especially with a game like this. But the controls are so simple that even if you aren't savvy with a controller, you find it pretty easy to actually pick this game up and play it with one, because there's only like a handful of buttons to push. Now, I haven't gotten to the point in the game where I'm using abilities yet, but you do get to you basically use A and X if you're using an Xbox controller, or X and square if you're using a PS4 controller, for the majority of the time. And then Y or triangle gets added in a little bit into the beginning and everything. But again, it's all straightforward gameplay, real simple, really engaging. There's little bouts of combat and stuff like that, which is really cool. But at its heart, the game is a puzzle game, and it's brilliantly done. They're not super complex puzzles, but they really do sometimes make you think, okay, so we've got a few objects laid out in front of us. How is all this supposed to work together? And so, I found myself, trying to figure puzzles out, and it taking me at least, I don't know, a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes tops, trying to figure out a puzzle, if it really stumped me, running back and forth between areas, because again, there's no dialogue in this game. And so you kind of just have to be aware of your surroundings and what you've done and what you haven't done, and how all these things work together. It's really brilliant, and it's so nice, which leads me into my next point. There's no hand-holding. And I know there are the Dark Souls, or the Souls game, as it were, that really kind of like reinvigorated the idea of no hand-holding. There's not much that they're telling you, other than the fact that you do have button prompts when necessary. So there's that much. But in terms of like saying, well, you need to go here now and do this and blah, 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 you don't have that. You are just exploring and enjoying the world as they want you to, which is great. We need more games like this that just let you go and play. A lot of games these days are really just like there to tell you how to play the game, about as much as anybody in the forums or something like that are willing to tell you that you suck and you should be playing it like this. But in this instance, Runic Games was like, you know what? We're going to let you guys explore the area and explore the world, because we really want you to see what we've made here, and it's fantastic. I love it. I love actually not having my handheld because it really does make you think for a second. A lot of games are just mindless, numbing, action-packed, shoot 'em ups or whatever, and blood and gore and violence. And this one is really one of those hidden gems that's just really does accentuate what video games are capable of, and especially with this one making you think for once. I like thinking, believe it or not. You know, I may seem dumb, but I do like thinking about things, and video games, when a video game comes about that really makes me think about what I'm doing and what I'm seeing and where I'm going, it's so much more enjoyable because you use your mind for things other than just playing a game and pushing buttons. You know, it's great. I love it. I guess I kind of already touched on this in the gameplay. Pro was simple mechanics, really straightforward. You know, if you need to move a block, go up to it, hold X/square, and then just move it to wherever you need to move it to solve the puzzle, or, you know, activate something to move on to the next area, or whatever you have. So the mechanics and the gameplay are extremely simple, and again, even combat is simple, and it's really, honestly, not that stressful. I mean, there were times where I was like, man, how do I solve this? But, you know, you take a step back and you take a look and trying to remember what you've done throughout the world, and it all eventually clicks. But it's not super difficult to a point where it makes it frustrating, and it's, I don't want to play this game anymore, so you just give up. And, well, this game doesn't really make me want to do that. It just makes me want to, you know, run around the world and figure out what I've done and, you know, try and solve the puzzle. It's really nice. I love it. Again, I really like to think about things sometimes, and some of my favorite games have been games that incorporate puzzles into it. So Prince of Persia, the new Tomb Raiders. There was a game on PSP called PQ. So that one was really something in terms of puzzle solving, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and this game is no exception. As simple as the puzzles are, even simplicity can be complex at times when you start putting simple puzzles together. So really, really love it. And I think this goes without saying, you know, as I've mentioned earlier, the storytelling technique is masterfully done. It's so good because again, your hand's not being held, but yet they want you to try and understand what you're supposed to be doing. And so instead of using words at the beginning, you pair up with this giant mechanized stone golem, and he doesn't speak a language that we understand. There are no subtitles or anything. He's just using gestures, and the way that he, you know, reacts to what's going on, it gives you indications as to what you're supposed to be doing. So when he goes up to that a doorway, and you know, he's giving you his arm. You'll see it in the footage. He's giving you his arm, and so he only has one arm, and so, you know, how is he supposed to open a door by himself? Technically, he could just do one side and then the other, but instead he wants you to help him. And so what does he do? He puts his hand in the doorway, looks at you, and then looks at the door, and it's something that you just have to notice. And I love that. I absolutely love that. He doesn't need any words. Even the first time playing this, which was on live stream, it literally was just, it clicked almost immediately when I saw him do that. I was like, oh, I've got to help him out. And it was a breath of fresh air to be able to just figure that out for myself, you know, just by understanding and witnessing what was happening in the game. It was absolutely very well done, and I can't wait to really kind of dive deep into the story and try and understand what the story might be. So far, I'm not entirely sure. We just assume that the main character's name is Hob, and this stone golem is, well, I mean, he becomes your friend. I don't know if he was a friend prior to the intro of the game, which was literally you push the start button and you go right into the game. There's no intro cinematics or anything like that. It just puts you right into the game, and so you have to kind of unravel the story yourself. And so I'm really interested to find out if something happened, where this corruption came from, you know, the purple stuff that you see around the map. And so yeah, I'm really excited to really find out what this game is about, and where Hob has come from, who he is, what he is, if the stone golem has any significance at all, or if it's just a NPC to start you out in the game. Now, again, I mentioned earlier on, I struggled to find anything bad about this game, and the only thing I have to complain about is a technical problem. On the screen right now, you're seeing one section of the game that I got to, and I found this interesting thing happening where if I went back and forth between two technically separate sections of this one area, things have to load. And the first time I go in, it loads just fine, but then each subsequent time that I go back and forth, the frame rate drops lower and lower, and it eventually plateaus at around maybe as low as 20 frames a second. And it'll drop that low and then go right back up. You'll see it in the frame counter if you take a look. If you watch that up in the upper right corner, you'll see that it just, every time you go back and forth, it just keeps going lower and then eventually plateaus as low as maybe 20 frames a second. It'll hop back up, but it takes a second. I think that this might be a memory leak. I'm not 100% on that, so don't quote me, but I would say that it's probably the cause, because it happens throughout the game. Anytime you load into an area, sometimes the first time is fine, and then anytime you have to go back to that area, the memory's not been cleared, so it just keeps building and building and building. Now, I know that doesn't really make much sense. It's like, well, if it's loaded in memory, then you think it should load faster. But RAM it stands for random access memory, so it's only accessed when it's needed, and when it's not needed, it unloads that from the memory so that it can free up more memory to load new things. And when that memory is not unloaded, then it just builds up and doesn't have enough memory to load the next thing in line. So I think this might be the possible cause of the frame rate drop, but that's literally the only thing I could find that was bad about this game. I love everything else. I mean, and sad to say that the one flaw is a technical issue, but it is a brand new game. They've been releasing patches. They released 2 or 3 patches in one day, so they're really on top of it right now. And I don't know if anybody's mentioned this, but I'm kind of hoping that maybe somebody sees it, or if anything else, I send it to their support, and maybe they can fix it or whatever. But I think there might be a memory leak somewhere in there, and hopefully they'll find it. They did mention that there may be an issue with the Ryzen CPUs, 8+ cores, which I have one. There may be an issue, and then so you have to send them a support ticket and stuff like that. Let them know, hey, I've got a Ryzen CPU, and here's my issue. But I'm not quite sure if this actually has to do with my CPU. I could be wrong. Like I said, this is just my experience with what a memory leak is and what it does, and so that's why I'm saying, well, maybe this is a memory leak, but maybe it has to do with my CPU. So until I actually send them a ticket or something like that, I won't know. But hopefully, if I do, I'll send this video to them, and maybe they'll look at it and say, okay, you got it, because it's evidence. It's evidence. It shows them exactly what's happening. So hopefully that'll be enough. But that's going to do it for this episode, guys. I know, like I said, 15 minutes. I mean, that's what this show is all about. Get down to the nitty-gritty, first couple hours of gameplay, and then my thoughts in about 15 minutes or so. But I think you guys are fine with that. Nobody wants a really long explanation of what the game's about, because you guys want to experience it, right? Right? Yes, you do. Because I'm telling you, worth it. $20. That's all this game is. Absolutely beautiful. And again, check out their other games, Torchlight 1 and 2. Fantastic dungeon crawler type games if you're into those. I know I am. I love them. And Runic Games, one of the few great developers, indie developers of our day, left. I know there's tons of indie developers popping up all the time, but the mainstream developers are losing their grip, and this is the time for indie developers to shine. And let me tell you, Runic Games put out yet another amazing game, and I can't recommend this enough. It is absolutely fantastic. So that's going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and please join me again in the next episode of Halftime, where we cover yet another game and point out its pros and cons, and gauge what we think about that game from just a few hours of gameplay. And if you're watching this on Twitch, don't forget to follow the channel so you know when I go live. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to check the links in the video description below, and on Twitch, of course, especially the one for Extra Life. Still trying to raise that $200. We're at 146, so we're really close. If you can donate, please do. Every little bit helps. And if you can't, don't worry. The event is coming up, and I can't be happier. I'm really excited for this year, as I am every year, because I love playing video games, even more so when it's for charity. So it gives me a reason to stay up really long and stream really long and just play games all damn day, and it's all for a good cause. So, you know, please give if you can. And, you know, hit that like button if you like this, dislike if you don't like indie developers, I guess. I don't know. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. But until next time, guys, I'm Adam Wolf. This is Hob, and I will see you guys in the next one.